Hey, good afternoon to our viewers. If you can hear me from Nigeria, from Europe, from America, and the rest of the world, I'm about to be joined by Sade, and we're going to be talking today, hey fella, about um, about a very interesting topic in line with everything hey Fati that we've been discussing in the past few weeks. We've talked about parents, we've talked about public institutions, we've talked about people who have been abused, but we haven't yet talked about children who are still growing up and what we can do to help them grow up safely. So when Sade joins me in a minute, we're going to be discussing that. Thanks for joining us wherever you're watching. Please leave comments. Let me know you're here. Let me know how you can see me and hear me. Yeah. So I'm going to sip my juice while waiting for my friend to come on. A bit of a warm day here. Hey Midday, thanks for joining. Let me know how I'm doing, audio and everything else. I know if I need to change something so you can hear me better. Video. Okay, she's here. How is that? Approve. So, sunshine in my studio. And we're gonna start. Let's know if you're hearing well and if you have any questions on your mind about the topic or anything you want us to talk about. Yeah. Oh, okay. I think I need to invite my friend again. So, bring a friend. Let's see. Let's do this. Approve. Yeah. Yeah, there we are.
I don't know what happened. It kept telling me I needed to rotate my phone to join. How's it
So be a
going?
glitch.
All right, I'm going to put this a little further
Okay.
back so I look more like you.
Hey, nice. Are we hearing each other?
I can hear you.
Okay. Fella and Mide say something about volume. Let me try something I need to know, but I don't think this is.
Nope, now you're on mute. I can't hear you at all.
Now you can hear me.
Yes.
Okay, Fella, Mide. I'm going to try and scream so you guys can hear me. All right? Because Shadi can hear me all the way in America. Must be the distance. Right. Hey, I better stay in the center so you guys can see me and Shadi at the same time. Shadi, so today, hey, Fella can hear me now. Great. We wanted to talk about children because we've talked about parents before, we've talked about victims, but we've hardly said a lot about children themselves. Children who are still growing, who have not yet encountered sexual situations, sexual abuse. What can we do to protect them?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. I'm really excited about it
Yeah.
because boundaries are my favorite subject, or one of my favorite subjects. So yeah, I'm
Really? Why?
Well, I think they're not emphasized enough, and they're probably our most powerful tool. Boundaries give you ownership. Like, boundaries are how you enforce your personal rights as a human being. And I think every person has personal rights. Children have personal rights. They have personal rights over their space, over their bodies, over their own minds. But it's something that we don't let them exercise. We don't let them exercise those rights. And I think that's what makes them so susceptible to being abused is because they're being taught that, hey, you don't have control over your body, you don't have control over your mind, you have to do what your elders say, things like that. And I think that leaves them open to being taken advantage of. And adults too.
Right. Mide says you can, and adults. Mide says you can hear us. Thanks, Mide. So from what you said, I understand that as per definition, boundaries are like a person being aware of their own limits in terms of relationships with themselves and with other people in
Right.
such a way that they're able to protect themselves and their emotions from being abused, taken for granted, poisoned, and so on, by
Right.
either the actions of others or by our own oversights, so to speak.
Right. Yeah.
Great.
So
Obembe is watching. Welcome.
to start, let's ask. I guess I want to ask you, why is this important? I know you had, when we prepped, you had some statistics and some thoughts about why it was really important to address giving children their own rights.
Yeah. Okay, let's do this. You know, what you and I are teaching or talking about now should be taught in school with textbooks and blackboards and stuff. But all we get in school is maths and English. So you and I have to figure this out when we are much older. But the statistics show, hi Shola, welcome. The statistics show that child sexual abuse usually happens between the ages of 3 and 8, which means that 3 and 8 years old, which means that by the time most of us learn what we need to know to be stronger people, all the bad stuff has already happened. So we're talking about this today so that parents can begin to prepare their kids when they're very young. We know that there are many parents who are a little bit shy to talk about sex, or who think kids are innocent, and they are, but they're also smart. How can we leverage all of that information? We also, in this conversation, you and I are also going to talk about boy children versus girl children. We already have a certain approach to talking with our girl children about sex. Why do we talk to them? What are we trying to protect them from? Do we talk to the boy kids? Do they need to be talked to? So these are some of the questions we're going to try to answer.
All right. Are we ready?
So maybe you want to, yeah. So maybe I should ask you, you know, in our culture, as for instance, as Nigerians, mothers tend to tell their girl children, their daughters, now and then things, you know, about their bodies. And so, in your own experience, can you shed some light on the motivation that mothers have and how that motivation culturally, whether that motivation takes care of all the issues at stake when it comes to your body, your rights, your dignity as a human being, or whether it's just almost like a commodity-based approach to girls and why you should stay free from, yeah. 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 Like, yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. If, yeah. 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 So, yeah, this raises a question. Yeah.
It's across both to the boys and the girls. All a guy wants is sex. That's what they said. They say to the boys and to the girls, and imply to the boys and to the women. It's your job to make sure that doesn't happen. But when it comes to child sexual abuse, I don't think mothers talk to their daughters so much. Within the culture, there's not a lot of those conversations that happen. We're not prepped to have those conversations with our daughters or with our sons. Really, I mean, what do you say to a 3-year-old? Make sure your uncle doesn't XYZ. What makes, you know? So there's no. I don't even think it would occur to anyone. With my children, it didn't even really occur to me to talk to them. I just created boundaries and made sure that there were no situations where it could happen. But now that I'm, a little
So you
more
felt,
educated on the topic, I realize, wait a second, boundaries are needed. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, yeah. Okay, one thing first. They say they can't hear you.
Oh, really? At all? Here.
I see some comments about Sade's audio, so you can figure that. But you were saying while you were
Mm,
there, you were saying that you think that there are not enough conversations happening for young girls, and that if there were any conversations at all, they are probably not appropriate. So maybe parents are worried about what kind of conversations are appropriate to have with a 3, 4, 5, 6 year old child. You know, and I would already
right.
suggest that I think the basic minimum would be body awareness and body image. Because we can really make the mistake of letting them start life off with a negative body image. Bodies are shameful things, sex is a shameful topic, and when a child acquires shame from a tender age, it complicates everything else they're ever going to do in life, such that if anything
Right.
happens involving the body, they may not be open to discussing with you as a parent because bodies are shameful and shameful
Right.
things have repercussions. So you can start by saying, my child, your body is a beautiful thing made by God or however you see it. And this is
Right.
and you name the body parts. I have a challenge with body parts being covered by euphemisms. You know, you name them
Yes.
anatomically and you
Right.
help them feel
Correct.
proud and help them feel like they own it and they control it. And from there, you can advance conversations slowly according to their intelligence to say, you know, watch out for people if they do this and that to you.
Right. Well, one of the reasons
You
why
want me to
parents
get closer to the mic?
may have a
So
hard
I'm closer
time
now.
giving kids the ability to own their bodies or own their minds is that the parents themselves see, the first
Yeah,
person
there
your
you go.
child is going to practice boundaries with is the parent.
Yeah, people are
So
trying to
if you give
achieve
the
a set of
ability
here.
to
I'm listening, man.
if you give your child the ability to say no, the first person they're going to say no to is you as the parent. And I think a lot of
Oh,
times as parents we don't want to be
oh,
challenged.
you don't want that.
You don't want to be
Okay, you
challenged.
want
So we
nice
take
kids.
And then when you take that
Oh,
ability to challenge you away from the kid, you also take it away from, you take away their ability to challenge anyone else. And then if you take the African Nigerian culture specifically, we have like a really what I consider an excessive respect of elders. I think it's excessive. I think age is
aha,
given
absolutely.
more credit than it really should be given. So, like, not every old person is wise, and not every young person is
Mm,
stupid. So
mm,
rather than giving children the ability to read the attributes of an adult and say, hey, adults who behave like this are good, and adults who behave like this should be ignored completely and disobeyed, we instead give them a blanket instructions to respect their elders, blanket instructions to obey their elders. So really, like you said, giving your child body awareness or giving them instructions that they own their bodies really means that the day you want to um, tell them, hey, eat this by force, they have the ability to say no because you've given them ownership and the ability to say, you know what, I don't want to put this in my body. I don't want to eat this. So you don't get to then spank a child because they didn't eat the food you told them to eat.
I just saw an interesting comment from Fela in line with what you just said. You just told us that we raised kids wrongly to give a blanket respect to every adult because they are older than us, as if age what's the word?
Confers wisdom
Age what's this
magically.
word? Age confers wisdom magically, whereas some adults are just bad people. Fela says Fela says an interesting thing to note as Nigerians is the way children are culturally obliged to present themselves to both familiar and unfamiliar adults respectfully. You have to be nice to
Yes.
everybody. You have to say good morning,
Right.
uncle, good morning, auntie, kneel down, prostrate. Okay, why can't you just ignore some uncles and aunties because they're creeps?
Exactly.
you know?
Exactly. And so this is a huge
Yeah.
shift in
And
culture that'll
if
be
you meet a
needed.
creepy uncle or auntie, you want to be able to say, I don't like you. You're not nice. Can you say
Correct.
that? My video is frozen.
Yeah, so the child needs to be able to say, hey, no, I don't want to shake their hand.
You know.
No, I don't want to give them a hug.
Hey,
No, I don't want to give Aunt XYZ a kiss.
yeah.
Right. They need to be able to say
And
no.
talking about what you just said now is actually one of those windows of opportunity where a parent can notice an abused child. If you have a child who is normally nice and well behaved, and this is one uncle or auntie, and it's like, I don't want to talk to this uncle. If you're a smart parent, it's time for you to call the child aside and learn, why don't you like that uncle? Maybe something has happened. But some parents will say, is that the way I raised you? Go and greet them very well.
Right.
Maybe that was the uncle or auntie that has already been doing something that the child doesn't like.
Or just gives the child, the way they approach the child makes the child feel uncomfortable. And they may not be approaching the child, they may not make the child uncomfortable in the sense that the child is going to be abused or they're going to abuse the child. The point is, if something makes a child uncomfortable, even a little bit, they should be able to say no.
Great. Yeah,
they may be uncomfortable
absolutely.
because of the smell of the perfume. That's okay. That's what ownership is. Ownership means when I don't like something, I'm not forced to participate in it.
So in terms of boundaries, a child needs to have self-confidence to not like some adults and have said that, I'm sorry, I don't want to be with this person or be nice to this person because I'm confident in myself that this is my judgment right now about this relationship.
Correct. That's huge. That's huge.
Yeah.
But that's the key, because a child that can say that over something small can also then say no, will not find themselves in that fight or flight, that freeze response, if they actually if there's an attempt made on them.
And let's get practical. Let's remember the viral story of Sola and the pastor, the person who is now the pastor of Koza. What if Busola's upbringing as a respectful child excluded the awareness that even my pastor, who is a man of God from God, can be a threat to me? What if in her head, with the way they raised her, she thought, Gerard likes my shirt, I like your shirt too. What if the way she was raised as a child is that, okay, the evil adults usually have horns on their head, but this is my pastor, he's holy, he's special, is he evil also? And that brings me to the issue of language. From my awareness of our culture, the way that mothers raise their daughters to avoid sexual risky situations is to say, don't let any man touch you. It's a fairly common lesson from adults to girl children. Don't let any man touch you. So my challenge with that is that I think it's an unclear advice. What does it mean to be touched?
Right.
I've seen situations where they said, a girl came back and said, he didn't touch me, he just asked me to remove my pants. Is it the same thing? So how can you, and she's 6 years old, she doesn't know. Besides, he's not a bad man, he's a pastor. Besides, he's not a bad man, he's my cousin.
Right.
Besides, he's not a bad man, he's my music or my math lesson teacher. The statistics show that let me look at it before I say another thing for you here. Okay, 90% of child sexual abuse victims reveal that they were abused by a person they know or who was close to the family.
That's true.
So how can we broaden the language that we used to speak to our children? Instead of saying, don't let any man touch you, tell them what sex looks like, what sexual abuse is, for me again personally, what's important is I always talk about red flags. Red flags are early signs in a bad situation before it really gets bad. At which point can a little child begin to think, I don't want to go further? If uncle says, if you come to my house tomorrow, I'll buy many sweets for you. If uncle says, go and sit on that chair and take off your shirt, at which point do I begin to have the alert, the spider senses tingling as a child? And what can I do? When I start feeling them, do I have the boldness to say, okay, I'm going home, okay, I'm not coming closer, okay, I don't want sweets? Or should I do myself like, mommy said I should? How do you raise these kids to even be able to use something like an early warning and to back off before the story complicates itself?
Yeah, and that's huge. And honestly, I'll have to say that this is not something that there's no one size fits all. It comes back to what you've talked about, parents having continuous conversations, being open to answering their children's questions about the world in general. You can't be a parent who doesn't have conversations about things. And then suddenly you take this big, heavy conversation and you just land it on your child.
Exactly.
Exactly.
I like what you said. And I want to amplify what you said very briefly. I've said it many times in other places, that as Nigerian parents in particular, we need to reinvent conversations. I don't want to, as a child, between children and parents, what kind of conversations do you have or did you have as a child with your parents? Did it go beyond have you eaten? Have you done your homework? Was it possible when you were a child to have abstract conversations with your parents like, oh, daddy, I saw the clouds and today they are not blue. I think they are like purple. Why are the clouds purple today? Would your father answer that question properly and say, stupid child, what's your with the
Or
cloud?
would he be around to even be asked the
Yeah.
question?
Could you tell your father, oh, I was watching Arsenal versus Chelsea. I think Arsenal has a better coach. I think Chelsea is horrible. Parents need to broaden the scope so that kids can feel comfortable on a normal day to say just about anything to them. So that when something really intense happens, they don't feel like, well, this is not part of stuff that we're supposed to discuss with our parents. So that's
Right.
the point.
Yeah, that's huge. And I mean, and this can be a real learning curve. I know it was a learning curve for me, like
Yeah.
a learning curve, and still is a learning curve for me to like deliberately create the atmosphere for those conversations, and then in a sense build the courage, because it doesn't feel, if you didn't have those conversations with your parents, it's not going to feel comfortable to suddenly begin to have those conversations with your kids. It just doesn't. It doesn't just happen. So there's a level of courage and a level of intentionality that's required to make it happen. You have to be like, okay, this is the kind of parent I want to be, that can have these conversations about anything, first of all, and then specific conversations with my children that helps protect them, or that empowers them to protect themselves, that empowers them to, in a sense, have their own sovereign ownership of the things that God has given them. God has given them their body, they own it, and give them the ability to say so. And these are the things that
Right.
prevent bullying. So we talk about bullying being a problem. There are particular children that get bullied. There are particular children that get singled out for sexual abuse. When you have predators that are ongoing serial predators, they know what to look for.
Yeah.
They look for people who don't speak up. They look for the people who don't have a huge support system around them, people who don't have a strong social net. Children of single moms, because those ones need a lot of help. They need a lot of babysitting. I mean, and this is not to say being a single mom is bad in itself. It's just a signal to a predator that, oh, I may have an opening here. A lot of predators are found in positions of authority or positions of care. So daycare centers, because women are abusers too. So daycare centers, clergy, we know about the Catholic Church scandals. I mean, we're talking thousands and thousands and thousands of boys, not even girls now, thousands and thousands and thousands of boys. So there's, it's such a huge problem, even though it's hidden in society, that parents really need to gear up. Like, don't put this one under the carpet.
Yeah, the way you've talked now, it seems you have begun to ask the gender questions about who does what to who. So I think I'm going to go that way for a moment. But just before I do, I want you to confirm that your video is not frozen with you, because on my side,
it doesn't look frozen on my end. Any comments that it's frozen? Yeah, looks good to me.
No, there are no comments. It must be my old-fashioned technology. But anyway, so let's talk about gender and who does what to who. Again, I'll start with statistics. In Nigeria, at least 1 out of 10 boy children have been sexually abused. Africa has the world's highest prevalence of male child sexual abuse, compared to Australia with girl child sexual abuse. Culturally, most boys refer to early sexual debut as conquest. Oh, I had that girl, I had that mommy, I had that auntie, it was sweet. Meanwhile, that's actually underage sex, even if it's usually with older women. So one of the things I'm learning is that, apart from telling girls that they should not allow a man to touch them, we need to have certain conversation with boys. But with boys, conversation is twofold. One side of the conversation is how the boy can protect himself from possible predators. The other side is how to teach boys to stop seeing girls as meat, food. I'm sorry to use such strong words, but that's what it is. To stop having a predatory instinct toward girls. Because society socializes men to be toxic to women. And there's this whole thing about patriarchy and superiority and power over women, which starts in early childhood, which is learned, and which by the time a boy is a teenager, he considers it a rite of passage to do certain things to women. And he doesn't even know how to interpret a woman's body language. What is no? What is yes? Oh, she doesn't really mean it. She's just saying no. She doesn't really mean no. Maybe if I give her some things, she will like me. So we need to start teaching our boys, I think, from childhood about gender and to break down the social norms that culture boys to grow up into abusers and rapists. Are you still there?
I'm here. I thought you were going to read something.
Yeah.
Well,
okay.
If you're
okay, let me read a few facts. You say this just briefly, so you can think about it and speak back. It says one gap that needs to be addressed in conversation is the different ways in which boy children and girl children are socialized about gender and sexual roles. Evidence demonstrates that sexist, patriarchal, or sexually hostile attitudes are predictors of violence against women. Rape culture is a societal tolerance of this kind of attitudes. So the question is, what should you do? What should you teach your boys to do when they're exposed to locker room talk? The kind of talk that happens in the school or in the streets about, that girl, did you see her? She was just like that, just did that thing. Everybody will just say, ha, 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 and laugh. What should your boy do when it's in that situation? Should he just say, ha, 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 with them? Or should he say, hey, guys, stop, that's not good. That's not how to treat a woman. Can you raise your boy? Because, hey, I think you're understanding me. So, yeah, let me hold it there. You tell me what you think.
Well, okay, I know I always like to go like 10 steps back from the question.
That's all right.
But by the time your son is in the locker room, in my opinion, it's too late. He's already who he is. So it goes back to one in the home. So it goes back to the home. It goes back to the little boy. It goes back to the 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old. It goes back to the attitudes within his home. How does daddy see mommy? How does daddy see my sisters? How does mommy see herself? How does mommy see her sisters? How does mommy see me? The dynamic is already set up within the home. So if the children are being raised without emotional awareness, where first of all toxic masculinity doesn't come because all of a sudden the boy gets told, oh, women are meat. Toxic masculinity starts from when the little boy is 5 years old. He is running on the street. He skins his knee. He's crying, and he's yelled at for crying like a girl or being a sissy. That's where toxic masculinity starts from. Because what happens is the boy is being told, or any feeling you have, any tenderness, any vulnerability, any empathy, any gentleness, any, care that you have, you need to take that part of yourself. You need to lock it away in a box, and you need to throw away the key. So when the boy starts getting that message from 5 to 10, by the time he's 10 years old, 12 years old, empathy is gone, tenderness is gone, affection is gone. The ability to see a girl and imagine walking in her shoes or how she would feel being talked about like that, it's gone.
Wow.
It's literally gone because he's been trained, real men don't cry, blah, 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 all of that stuff. So if he's in the locker room making sexist jokes, that's just par for the course because, well, this is who I am. I'm a guy. We don't feel those things. And by virtue, if I don't feel those things, then what do? I'm strong. I'm a conqueror. But then by extension, women are to be conquered. It's a journey that we go on. It's a journey that humans go on. It's not a one-time thing that happens. And the same thing, and just to finish that off. So when the boy gets in a situation where he's being abused, he can't go and cry to his mother because he's a man. So he's 8 years old, he's abused or whatever. Why do you think thousands of young boys wouldn't speak up? Because they were men, quote unquote men. They didn't cry.
Yeah, exactly.
So they had to lock all that away. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So I heard you saying a lot about parental modeling, how it starts early, and how if the parent or the father in particular is not modeling a refined manhood to his boy child, there's nothing can tell that child. He's going to grow up to be like his daddy, right?
Right. Or the extreme opposite. Or the extreme opposite. They usually go one or... Well, the extreme opposite would then be he rebels against everything. He rebels against everything his father does. So he becomes, in a sense, a weakling. So if his father is toxic, but then is also a hard worker and a provider and takes a job, then the boy can say, well, if I'm rebelling against everything my father is, I don't want to be a toxic man. But he also translates being
Lazy and stuff.
Yes, he then no, well, it was the opposite of being lazy. He then translates being hardworking, being serious, being effective, being productive as being toxic as well. So it goes the extreme opposite.
Yeah.
So yeah, then you see what you call layabout
Right.
bombs.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, vital. Shadi, I want to briefly touch on tone, because where the heading of everything we are doing here is teaching children to set boundaries. Now, in these conversations that parents may have with kids, I think tone is important, as in not just what you say, but the how, the voice of it. Let me explain what I mean. A lot of conversations with children which dwell on sexual issues tend to be in a what we call a recriminatory tone.
Dire warnings.
What that Thank you very much. Dire warnings. What that means that most adults or parents or teachers hardly advise or counsel children in a one-on-one conversational trust-building way. You're now moving in my video to about sex. They're like, if I see you, oh, you're going to be in trouble. Don't let me see you. And then they inspire fear and all of these attitudes. That doesn't help. No matter what you see, as children are such computers that they process not just your words, but your symbols and images.
Right.
So, no matter the content of your speech to the child, if the tone is heavy and harsh and presents the child as a problem, if you don't behave yourself, if you don't dress well, if you don't have sense, that child, when they do get into that situation where they need to talk to you with trust, they don't have the trust, they have fear. And they now in those situations think that if I would tell mommy or daddy that this happened, or that uncle did that, or that, maybe daddy will not like me again. They will think I've broken their trust. They think I'm not a good enough child, and so on. So be careful how you say it. Let them know you are saying it in their interest, that you love them, that they are complete children, that you are protecting them. Do not introduce the element of shame, stigma, fear, panic, paranoia in the tone or your choice of words.
Yeah, which brings us back to the fact that, like I always say, the parents' healing has to start first. The parents' consciousness.
All right.
So when you talk about paranoia, panic, well, if the mother is extremely anxious in this area and hasn't resolved her own issues in the area of sexuality, well, she's going to pass on that anxiety, paranoia, panic, even if she's trying to help her child. So a lot of that, the ability to pass on self-awareness and boundaries to our kids starts with us first. It starts with our ability to have them, our ability to build them. How skilled are we at it? I firmly believe that parents model so much more. You pass on much more by how you live than what you say. So it's always worth it to work on your own recovery, your own healing, and your own education first before attempting to go and give your kids any kind of education. Or at least do them at par. At least do them at par. Like admit, hey, look, I didn't know this before. I'm learning it, but I just want to let you know in case this comes up.
Such humility.
Yeah.
Okay, because this is in our culture outstanding that a parent should have been to a child. I myself am learning. I don't know everything.
Yeah, my kids remind me how much I don't know every day. So it's a runaway train in my house.
It's a quantum leap, but it's great. Let me shift now, because we are rolling out, to the end of the show. But I want you, Sade, to tell us, how do you see the issue of virginity? How do they call it? Wife material, bride price, and all of those commodifications of women as a basis for advising the girl, don't spoil your bride price. So instead of, you're a human being, you have dignity. Please help me understand.
Are people even still saying things like that? Oh my God.
My God, yes. Wife material happens every day.
This is huge. It's a huge one. I think the topic of virginity should just be scrapped. Let's just scrap that. Like, don't even talk about it. Like, no such thing exists.
Okay.
Like,
wow, that's shocking. All right.
No such thing exists. Like, in my mind, and from what I've read a little bit, the evolutionary adaptation, cultural, and it's not just this culture, not just our culture, every culture where virginity has become an issue. Because even in the Bible, here's the thing, even in the Bible, the word virgin wasn't used as for a woman who hadn't had sex before. That was the word for a young girl. The assumption was that a young girl who hadn't been married wouldn't have had sex, but the word didn't mean girl who hasn't had sex.
Exactly.
That's not what virgin in the Bible means. That's not what virgin in the Bible means. However, the human biological, now I'm just referring to us as biological beings. As biological beings, we have a quote unquote evolutionary adaptation, whichever one you believe in, need to pass on our seed, right? So we've been adapted, women have been adapted to look for the male who is most likely to have the best genes so that her children will survive. Which is why women tend to be attracted to the tall, dark, handsome, angry-looking guy. Because genetically, this is all biology. I'm telling you, I did not make this up. This is all science. When I read about it. Genetically, that look shows that, number one, he's likely to have stronger genes, and he's more likely to be able to protect her and her children from being eaten by wild animals. So if the nice guys were wondering why they don't get picked, it's a biological function or biological malfunction in the female gender. Now, on the other hand, the male gender will look for the woman with the big hips, blah, blah, because she's more likely to be able to survive childbirth, have multiple children, larger children. The virginity thing came in because as society grew, the woman's ability to have sex multiple times and bear children for one man, but bring it to the other guy to raise. Like there's no way for a guy to be sure that all his children are his. Until recently, and scientific. So in the past, there was no way for exactly. In the past, there was no way for any man to know that his children were really his. So hence the virginity issue, hence the bride price issue. Hence the ownership of women. All of that is because biologically, no man wants to raise another man's kids.
Man's child. So the consequence of the points you've made very well is that when we're having a conversation with kids about why they need to protect their bodies and honor their bodies, it's not just because your body has value for virginity and marriage.
Not at all.
Because we need to go beyond that and say you're a human being, you have dignity, and you don't need to be violated emotionally, physically.
Exactly. You don't belong. Your body is for you, not for someone else. Your body is not a toy or an object.
Body. It's not your community's body.
Exactly. It's yours. And isn't that the truth? If you think about it in a fundamental human way, isn't that literally what God did? He gave us this body. He made sure our bodies were not connected to anybody else's body. And he gave my brain complete control over my hands, my feet. It's my body. And children should be given that knowledge. Because that's the way God made it. And the reason
own it healthily.
Right. And the reason they need to own it and the reason they need to protect it is that if other people abuse it, then it's less useful for you. It's for you. Yes. Then you don't get
for your own needs.
For your own needs.
Not your family's needs, not your community's needs.
Right.
Your needs.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
There you go.
Dayo is saying that he's sharing a personal anecdote, and I think this is where we round up. Dayo says that when he was a kid, his concept of nudity was affected because parents were always shouting at them not to walk around naked. They were just 3 or 4 years old. So 4-year-old children be made to wrap toys around their bodies, so that he grew up with a fear of nudity.
Wow.
And I think he's saying how that wires the brain to already have the instinct of shame at an early age and not be able to confront sexual issues. And again, thanks, that it comes down to the whole thing we are saying about we need to be careful about the content and tone of our language when we're talking to kids about sex. We have too much of a huge problem with shame and stigma around sex. It needs to get out of the way. Sex is what it is. It's just sex. It's not very special.
Right. Special sometimes, but and bodies are not shameful.
Face it bodies are not shameful. Let's be unsentimental so that we can have these conversations in a very sensible manner.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to throw the ball in your court.
Again, you know, I'm just going to go on for another 10 minutes.
Right. So, I'll let you take it home.
All right. Well, I think this one may require a couple more sessions to explore one or two topics that may come out of it. But yeah, this is a huge conversation, and if anyone has questions or comments, we'd love to really engage you in this conversation and get this conversation out there to our fellow Nigerians, fellow Africans, so that maybe we can really, in our time, make a shift in our culture. We'd love to see that.
Great. Thank you, Sade, all the way from Missouri, United States of America.
Whoop, whoop.
And Ayo, all the way from
Rotterdam, Netherlands.
Right.
All right. It's
and
good to
all
see
our lovely Nigerian, European, American guests. We're so glad to have you. We'll be back on Friday.
Friday, same time.
Our YouTube page. Let's Talk with Sade and Ayo. Subscribe and watch all the other videos there.
Take care, everyone.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Bye.